So I got my lawn sweeper out for another season of pine needles and pine cones. I've already used it a couple times this spring. The first time was before I even mowed. The pine needles were so bad. They were resting on top of the grass. That's a good time to sweep the yard. So I thought I'd just kind of recap what's going on. I'm going to do a little sweep. I got a tree that's laying a lot of pine cones. It appears to be just one tree. Don't know why. But let me refresh you on some of the things that I've had to do with the sweeper over the time that I've used it. I've beat it up a little bit, but it's still holding up pretty well. So let me share a couple things with you. One of the things that's kind of changed and evolved over time is the dump rope. It was always a little short. I added this here to hook the rope to, but it was still pulling off. It's just light plastic and it would still pull off. So I added a little bit of length to it, and then I keep it hooked up on here, and that keeps the rope from coming off, especially when you're doing a turn, and it pulls the rope when you turn that way. But then the rope falls down, it gets caught up in the sweeper and ties a big knot, and then it takes several minutes to get that all undone. And I did talk about this in a previous video, but the sweeper comes with a adjustable little pucks or something in here, so you can adjust this height to adjust the level of your basket. You want the basket to be pretty level to the ground this way, and it's pretty close right now. So this is where I was running it, and this lower piece, you can see it's got an angle to it. That originally comes flipped over, and the spacers that I had in here, the pin came out one time, and I lost the spacers. So I said, well, I'm not using this on anything else. I only use it on my Ryobi. So I flipped this thing over. I put a little spacer piece in here and got this bolted back up. So now I don't have any spacers in between here, and just put the pin in there. And another thing to keep in mind is the height adjustment. You loosen this and tighten it, and put this wherever you want for your height adjustment. Just in case it comes loose or somebody changes it, I try to mark that. I should mark it with something a little bit more permanent, so that I remember where my ideal position is. And my ideal position, if I check the brushes, is I cannot quite get my fingers under the brushes without them touching. So I'm probably about a ½ inch off the ground here on the level ground. And that seems to work the best for me. In some of the previous videos, you may have noticed that I've had a lot of ripping and tearing going on. And that's because this basket is in here pretty tight, and once it tears, it starts to want to keep tearing. So I've got Gorilla tape on here in a bunch of places, and I've repaired this a couple of times. The Gorilla duct tape seems to be holding up the best. This is just as black tape, and I have some remnants of some red tape that I used previously right here. That's holding up fine, and here's some more black tape, and black tape wrapped around here to hold this together. And that's been working pretty good. You hear that ticking noise, there's a little branch or something that's stuck in there. And I like that because as long as it's ticking, I know the brushes are rotating. It's very common for it to get jammed up with something. And when you don't hear the ticking, that means it's not rotating, it's just dragging the wheels, and it's not picking up anything. Now this is what the problem is that I'm showing you. I only have it with this one tree here. It's dropping pine cones like crazy. And you can see here on my driveway how dense it is. And you can barely see out in the grass how many there are, but this really shows you, this is in the grass too. It's that dense in both my yard and my neighbor's yard. So the whole purpose today is really to pick up these pine cones, and then I do have an accumulation of some pine needles that's sitting on top of the grass that I'm going to try to pick up before I mow the grass. And you can see those pine cones, if they do get picked up, they do tend to fly pretty high and fast. So you need to keep your speed down a little bit. Faster is not better for picking up these pine cones. So you can see how many sweeps it took for me just to clean off the driveway. So I'm picking them up, but I think my pickup percentage is only about 50% as they either don't get picked up or they get thrown out. So click, click, click. It's still rotating. And it's so hard to drive this slow, picking up these pine cones, but I did a pretty good job. I'll do a couple more sweeps, and I'm going to go pick up some pine needles along the row. But you can see the basket is, that I would consider fairly full. It's probably 3/4 full. You don't want to go much higher than the level of that front bar there, just behind the spinner, because then the stuff just keeps falling back onto the roller. Now here you can see I do have some bare patches here and there and sprinkled around in here, but this was mostly bare a year or two ago, and one of the keys was to picking up the pine needles, I believe. I didn't really plant any grass seed here. I just let it grow and then let it grow long and try to be healthy. But you got to pull the rake out the pine needles from underneath the bush. You got to lift them up out of the grass, and then the sweeper will pick them up. And a similar situation on this side of the yard. There is grass out here, but you can see there's a lot of round spots, and the grass is growing once we raked out the pine needles a little bit by hand and then pick it up with the sweeper. So I'm going to make a couple sweeps here and try to pick up some of the pine needles that are sitting a little bit tall in the grass to try and help this grass to grow, thrive a little bit, hopefully. Well, it's stopped picking up because you can probably see how high the pine needles are, and they're actually falling back down behind the roller, and it's actually dumping them back on the ground every time I hit a bump. So we're going to do a little dump here by my little fire pit, and I'll make a couple more sweeps and pick up those piles I'm leaving behind me. Oh, that's a heavy one. Not too much, but there's a little bit there. That's all pine needle. So that's going to pretty much cover the sweeper for this season. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of pickups when the leaves start falling, and more needles and more pine cones to pick up. I can see some of these pine trees are starting to pop some more cones, so it's going to be a busy year for pine cones. Thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful for you. Maybe you gained a little bit of information on do's and don'ts, and yeah, you can let me know about the don'ts. Just leave them down in the comments. Talk to you later.